NFL season is almost here, and with just a few weeks remaining until we start to see some real NFL action and training camp battles, it is about time to start up your fantasy leagues, and hopefully you'll win this year. I think I might be able to help you in that department because I am a huge Chargers fan. As you guys know, I've watched every single play from this freaking team at least 3 times from this past season. And yes, that is not a joke. I literally have spent that much time watching this team because of this YouTube channel. So let me tell you guys some people that I think you should draft on the Chargers in fantasy football this year if you want to win your league. So let me start off with the obvious one. If you've been kind of keeping up with the news recently, it's McConkey, because I feel like he's gotten the most buzz out of anybody on the Chargers right now, which is kind of crazy because he's a rookie, but it's for good, legitimate reason, and I'm buying in on him as well. There have been countless reports of McConkey emerging as Justin Herbert's favorite target in practices, and this is where you establish that rapport with your quarterback. It is in those practices prior to the season, so he's doing everything correctly thus far. Once training camp starts up, I would expect him to be getting a ton of targets in this offense, and even in the preseason, depending on how much Jim Harbaugh plays those guys in the preseason. But he's going to produce with the ball in his hands, and coaches, they're going to see that, and then they're going to drop more plays up for him. But also, he's just going to get a ton of targets because he is so good at getting open because of his route running ability that, you know, as Justin Herbert just naturally progresses through his reads, he's going to find McConkey open more often than the other Chargers wide receivers because they're not going to get open as often as him. Think of guys like Quentin Johnston, DJ Chark. They are not going to be as open as often as McConkey is. McConkey's best skill is easily his route running ability, and he is such a good freaking route runner that Justin Herbert even said he plays like a 4 to 5 year vet. But he is also extremely athletic and ran a 4.3 40. Don't let the looks fool you. This guy is freaking athletic, man. And he also has some crazy agility, the ability to make guys miss after the catch. He does have a little bit of that, but he also is literally everything that you want in a wide receiver outside of like going up for jump balls and getting those contested catches. He's not going to be like Mike Williams in that aspect, okay? But his game is so good and so versatile that Greg Roman even said this.
Very excited about Lad. We know the physical traits, the speed, the quickness, ability to change direction, catch the ball, make plays with the ball in his hands. I think he's a guy that we can definitely do some different things with. You know, a little bit of a Swiss Army knife.
So both Justin Herbert and Greg Roman, that's the quarterback and the offensive coordinator, are bought into McConkey because of how impressive he has already been. But on top of that, Justin Herbert threw for 3,134 yards last year. And I know that's not a lot, okay? But he missed 4 games, and that offense was really terrible at times, like against the Jets and the Bears. Oh my God. But 2,728 of those yards went to receivers that are no longer on this team. That is less than 400 yards passing to receivers that are currently on the Chargers from Justin Herbert this past season. So that production, it has to be made up from somebody, and a savvy route runner that is extremely athletic can be used as a Swiss Army knife. That is the main guy that I'm looking at to pick up all of those yards. Even former Chargers quarterback Chase Daniels loves this guy.
McConkey is going to end up being the number 1 receiver. You lose Keenan Allen, you lose Mike Williams, Josh Palmer's there, he's great. I think there's a world where McConkey has over 100 catches.
Now, if you are of the opinion that this team is just not going to get as many yards through the air because Jim Harbaugh doesn't believe in the forward pass, and Greg Roman, he can't draw up a passing play to save his life because I'm a Ravens fan and I really hate Greg Roman. But first of all, you're wrong. But may I interest you in a running back named Kimani Vidal, or Vidal. I have talked so highly about this guy ever since we had drafted him, and I think he's going to burst onto the scene at some point this season and have a ton of production. I just don't know when exactly in the season it's going to happen because there are 2 running backs above him on the depth chart right now. It is Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, who, as you guys know, they have injury histories, specifically J.K. Dobbins. But Kimani Vidal is already the third back in this rotation, and that third back, they're already going to be getting some action, so he's going to be getting action right away. I'm almost confident, though, that J.K. Dobbins is not going to be fully healthy for this entire season, whether that means he's going to miss games or just be used sparingly with like 4 to 5 touches a game. That's just what I expect, because he has not been able to prove otherwise throughout his entire NFL career. But Kimani Vidal, he fits that same type of running back that J.K. Dobbins is. So if he needs to sit out for any reason, health-wise or whatever, in order to replicate what you are missing with J.K. Dobbins gone, you put in Kimani Vidal, because he is the most similar to J.K. Dobbins' game. And listen, I love J.K. Dobbins. I think he is a legitimate top 15 running back in the NFL if he's healthy. And if he is healthy, I think you should also draft him in fantasy. But Kimani Vidal, he has more than 5 yards per carry in college, over 1,000 yards after contact. Yes, 1,000 yards after contact. 94 missed tackles last year. Both of those were at the top of the freaking NCAA. And he is an elite route runner as graded by PFF over these past 2 seasons, has a great blend of size, speed, and shiftiness that is really rare to see from a running back. He's also a tough runner between the tackles and also has the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and block for his quarterback on 3rd down. Listen, man, whether Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins get injured or not, I think Kimani Vidal has true 3-down running back potential, and he should realize that potential at some point this season. The only question is, how quickly is he going to start getting the bulk of that action? I don't really know. I think that depends on the health of the guys ahead of him, but this is a really sneaky pickup that you can get on waivers. And honestly, I would just straight up draft this guy in the later rounds, because I think he's a really good flex option in fantasy. He's going to produce, but also as the season goes on, he's just going to get more and more action. On top of how good Kimani Vidal is and how uncertain the health is of the guys in front of him, the Chargers, they're also going to have an improved offensive line with Rashawn Slater. He is fully healthy now. Not a lot of people know that he was injured the entirety of last season. Joe Alt on the right side, and then Bradley Bozeman at center. Those are all improvements. And then on top of that, Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, they have an offense that wants to establish the run. So somebody in that backfield is going to get a ton of action. I think it is going to be Kimani Vidal. Watch out for him, because this is one of those guys that honestly, he can change the entire fantasy league that you're in. Now, the last one that I want to talk about, this one's kind of like a wild card here, but I really believe in this Chargers defense to turn it around from last season because of Jesse Minter's coaching. Like I said, I watched every single play from last year at least 3 times. Brandon Staley was a huge problem for this defense. There was so much miscommunication. A lot of guys didn't know what was going on or where they should be, but anyway, I don't think that this is going to be a top 5 defense, okay? Because they just don't have that kind of personnel right now. Even top 10 is kind of pushing it. But I think that they are going to be able to produce, and in a fantasy football setting, that is the biggest thing. Jesse Minter, he prioritizes putting the offensive line and quarterback in conflict, and that creates mismatches in the blitzes and the coverages. I think that this defense has the guys at nickel cornerback to blitz off the edge, and then you got Derwin James. He's got the ability to do a ton of different things, including blitz off the edge, but also blitz on the A-gap, play in the box, or play deep. So Jesse Minter, he's going to be able to confuse the quarterback with different looks and have the personnel to take advantage of when the quarterback is confused and doesn't have time to throw, because he put the offensive line in a bad position by bringing in a cornerback blitz or something like that. I don't think the Chargers have personnel to stay back and cover for more than like 4 seconds here, but they're not really going to be needing to do that because of these edge rushers like Khalil Mack, like Joey Bosa, like Tuli Pelotu. These guys are going to produce and get a ton of sacks, especially with all of the different looks that Jesse Minter is going to bring. Every single one of those guys was productive last year in sacks, which is basically points if you're just doing fantasy, and then also interceptions. I think they're going to get some more turnovers because of that confusion that they're going to be able to create with this scheme. So guys like Asante Samuel Jr., Derwin James are going to be getting more interceptions. I think look out for Tarheeb Still probably getting his hands on the ball as well at that nickel spot. And then a guy like Alohi Gilman, he can't be overlooked because he has been really clutch these past 2 years. He can also rip the ball out for some forced fumbles. We saw that this past season against Minnesota. But it's not just the defense, it is also the return man. The best return man in the NFL this past season was Derius Davis, who was a shifty wide receiver from TCU, rookie last year, entering his second season, and he was the NFL's best returner. One touchdown punt return, which was the most in the NFL, and one in the preseason, which again was the most in the NFL. Both of those punt returns went for over 80 yards, but he didn't just have those 2 returns that were really good. He had a lot of pretty good returns. And on top of that, the Chargers special teams was one of the best in the NFL, and they are retaining their special teams coach from this past season. So you're going to be able to see some forced fumbles on that punting team while also seeing some touchdowns on that punt return team. Both of those equate to a ton of points in fantasy football. On top of all that, I just sold you on this Chargers defense. I think the Chargers defense / special teams would be a really good pickup in fantasy football. Obviously, don't play them against like the Chiefs, but I think this would be really good. I don't think you should play any defense against the Chiefs, to be honest with you. So those are my thoughts on fantasy football in terms of the Chargers. If you did not see my video yesterday, there was a little bit of drama with Justin Herbert again because of the media.